Have you ever promised yourself a reward just to finish something difficult? Once I finish this task, I'll relax. Once I work harder, I'll earn more. For decades, we've believed that motivation works exactly like this. Rewards push us forward. But what if that idea is mostly wrong? Hello, and welcome back to Bookworm. Today we're exploring Drive by Daniel H. Pink, a book that challenges one of the most common assumptions about human behavior, that people are mainly motivated by rewards and punishments. For a long time, businesses, schools, and institutions relied on what psychologists call the carrot and stick model. If you want people to perform better, you offer incentives, bonuses, promotions, prizes. But researchers began noticing something surprising. In many situations, especially when tasks require creativity or problem solving, rewards don't improve performance. Sometimes they actually make people less motivated. Curiosity fades, creativity drops, engagement disappears. So, what really drives us? Daniel Pink argues that human motivation is built on something deeper than money or external rewards, something psychological. Stay with me until the end, because the three forces this book reveals, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, might completely change the way you think about work, productivity, and even your own goals. If you enjoy exploring psychology, behavior, and the hidden ideas behind success, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Bookworm. Now let's go deeper into Drive.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. For most of modern history, we've all worked under a really simple assumption about what makes people tick. If you want them to do better, you reward the good stuff and you punish the bad. Carrots and sticks. But what if that entire framework is just broken? What if almost everything we think we know about motivation is fundamentally wrong? Well, today, we're going to dig into the core idea from Daniel Pink's amazing book, Drive, which argues that the real secret to high performance has nothing to do with external rewards and everything to do with tapping into a powerful, built-in human drive. And our story starts, kind of surprisingly, back in 1949 with a psychologist named Harry Harlow. He'd set up an experiment with a group of rhesus monkeys, and he designed these simple little mechanical puzzles for them. To solve it, a monkey had to do three things: pull out a pin, unhook a latch, and then lift a hinged cover. Harlow just put the puzzles in their cages, planning to later see how a food reward might motivate them to solve it. But then something really weird happened. Without any nudging from the scientists, no instructions, and definitely no treats, the monkeys just started playing with the puzzles. And they were focused, they were determined, and, well, they actually seemed to be having fun. And pretty soon they started figuring them out. Now, this was a huge puzzle for the scientists. It just didn't compute. Behavior was supposed to be driven by two things: our biological needs, like hunger, and external rewards and punishments. So Harlow came up with this pretty radical new idea. He called it a third drive. He said the monkeys solved the puzzle simply because doing it was its own reward. Okay, now this is where the story takes a fascinating turn. The obvious next step, of course, was to see what would happen if he actually did reward them. If they were already solving these things for free, just for the fun of it, surely giving them a delicious raisin every time they succeeded would make them even faster, right? More focused, more efficient. That's what anyone would assume. But that's not what happened. Not even close. In fact, it was the complete opposite. When the scientists introduced a food reward, their performance got worse. The monkeys who got the raisins actually started making more mistakes, and they solved the puzzles less often. This just blew everyone's minds. It was like watching gravity work in reverse. It suggested that our entire model of motivation was built on a shaky foundation. The reward didn't boost their internal drive. It completely smothered it. So why on earth does this happen? Well, Daniel Pink uses a fantastic metaphor. He says our approach to motivation is like a computer's operating system. For most of human history, we ran on Motivation 1.0, which was basically just survival. Then, with the Industrial Revolution, we got an upgrade, Motivation 2.0, which is, believe it or not, the system most of the world still runs on today. And this is our default setting. Motivation 2.0 is built entirely on that carrot and stick principle. The core assumption is that people don't naturally enjoy work, so to get them to do things, you have to dangle a reward in front of them or threaten them with a punishment. And look, this system was actually pretty well suited for the kinds of work people did in the 20th century. routine, predictable, follow the rules kinds of jobs. And this really gets to the heart of the whole issue. Motivation 2.0 can work, sort of, for what you'd call algorithmic tasks. You know, things where there's a set recipe to follow, a clear path to one right answer. Think of working on an assembly line. But today, most of the important work is heuristic. There is no recipe. You have to be creative, you have to experiment, you have to come up with something new. And it turns out, for that kind of work, carrots and sticks don't just fail, they can actually do serious harm. Now, Harlow's monkey study wasn't just some weird fluke. The scientific proof that these kinds of if you do this, then you get that rewards can completely backfire has been piling up for decades. Let's look at another classic study, but this time with people. So, back in 1969, a grad student named Edward Deci decided to put Harlow's theory to the test with humans. He used this puzzle that was really popular at the time called the Soma Cube. It's made up of 7 different pieces, and you can put them together in millions of different ways. He wanted to see if paying people to solve these puzzles would change how much they enjoyed playing with them naturally. The experimental setup was super simple but really clever. He brought in 2 groups of college students. On the first day, both groups just played with the puzzles. No money involved. On the second day, he told Group A he'd pay them for every puzzle they solved, but Group B still got nothing. And then came day 3, the most important day. The money was taken away from Group A, and both groups were unpaid again. And during breaks in the experiment, Deci secretly watched to see how much time the students spent playing with the puzzles just for the fun of it. And the results were an absolute bombshell. On that final day, the students in Group B, the ones who were never paid, they just kept right on playing with the puzzles during their free time. But Group A, the group that had been paid on day 2, once the money was gone, they showed way less interest in the puzzle. The reward had literally turned play into work. As Deci himself put it, the money had snuffed out their intrinsic interest. It had taught them that the only real reason to solve the puzzle was to get the cash. And Deci's experiment was really just the tip of the iceberg. Over the years, scientists have uncovered a whole list of problems with these if-then rewards. They don't just kill intrinsic motivation. The research shows they can actually hurt performance, especially on complicated tasks, because they make us narrow our focus. They crush creativity by making us look for the fastest, easiest solution, not the best one. They can even crowd out good behavior like helping others, encourage people to cheat to get the reward, create dependencies that feel like addictions, and promote a really dangerous short-term mindset. Okay, so if the old system is so flawed, what's the solution? Well, all the science is pointing us toward an upgrade, a new operating system that isn't built on controlling people from the outside, but on unleashing that powerful third drive, our own intrinsic motivation. Pink calls this Motivation 3.0. And the beautiful thing about Motivation 3.0 is that it's not some complicated jargon-filled management theory. It's actually incredibly simple. It operates by satisfying 3 basic psychological needs that every single one of us has. So the first element is autonomy. This is our natural state. It's that deep, innate desire to be in the driver's seat of our own lives. Now, this doesn't mean working all by yourself. It just means having a sense of choice. In the workplace, that means having some control over what you do, when you do it, how you do it, and who you do it with. The second element is mastery. This is that powerful urge to improve, to make progress, to get better at something you actually care about. You know, Motivation 2.0 demands compliance. Just do what you're told. But you can't get to mastery through compliance. It only comes from genuine engagement. And the pursuit of mastery is one of the most powerful motivators there is. And the third element, which really gives meaning to the other 2, is purpose. As humans, we are purpose-seeking creatures. We have this deep yearning to contribute, to feel like our work is connected to a cause that's bigger than just ourselves. The most deeply motivated people are the ones who connect their desire for autonomy and mastery to a higher purpose. So here's the bottom line. For those simple, algorithmic, routine tasks, if-then rewards can occasionally be okay if you're really careful. But for the complex, creative, problem-solving work that defines the 21st century, we need a totally new playbook. Instead of trying to motivate people with external carrots, the goal has to be creating an environment where their own natural, intrinsic motivation, their drive for autonomy, mastery, and purpose, can finally be set free. Now, these 2 operating systems, Motivation 2.0 and Motivation 3.0, they end up creating 2 fundamentally different ways of thinking and behaving. And understanding this difference is really the key to putting all these ideas into action. So let's break it down. Type X behavior is powered by extrinsic desires, things like money, fame, or grades. For a type X person, the reward is the main point. The work itself is just the thing you have to get through to get the reward. This kind of motivation is like coal. Sure, it can burn hot for a while, but it creates a lot of pollution and eventually it runs out. Type I behavior, on the other hand, is fueled by intrinsic desires. For a type I person, the main reward is the work itself, the freedom it offers, the challenge it presents, the purpose it serves. And this kind of motivation is like the sun. It's clean, it's sustainable, and it's basically an endless resource. And that really brings us to the most important takeaway from all of this. The best news is that type I people are made, not born. This is our natural state. The secret to unlocking incredible performance, deep personal satisfaction, and real well-being isn't about finding a bigger carrot. It's about finally stopping treating people like they're horses and starting to treat them like humans. It's all about designing our workplaces, our schools, and our own lives in a way that nurtures our innate and far more powerful desires for autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Just take a second and think about your own world, your job, your team, your own life. Are you still running on that old, clunky software of Motivation 2.0, relying on carrots and sticks? Or are you ready for the upgrade? What's running your operating system?
One of the most powerful ideas in Drive is that motivation isn't something that can simply be forced from the outside. Real motivation comes from within. Daniel Pink explains that people perform their best when three psychological needs are satisfied: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is the feeling that we have control over our actions, that we can decide how we work and what we focus on. Mastery is the desire to improve at something meaningful. Progress itself becomes rewarding when we see ourselves getting better. And purpose is the sense that our effort matters, that the work we do contributes to something larger than ourselves. When these three elements exist, motivation becomes natural. People don't need constant pressure or rewards to keep moving forward. But when they disappear, even the biggest incentives often fail to create real engagement. Understanding this idea changes the way we think about productivity, leadership, education, and even personal goals. Because sometimes the problem isn't that people lack motivation. Sometimes the environment simply doesn't allow motivation to grow. If one idea from this book made you rethink how motivation works, tell me in the comments below. And if you enjoy exploring psychology, human behavior, and the ideas that shape how we work and live, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Bookworm. There are many more fascinating books ahead. Until next time, keep reading and then keep questioning what really drives us.